There are two ways to create three-dimensional shapes in AutoCAD. You can either do that using the three-dimensional primitives or directly creating those three-dimensional shapes with your command, or you can extrude a two-dimensional line, a closed two-dimensional polyline, into the third dimension to give it shape. We're going to go over both of those methods in this video. All right, so the first one, all of these, by the way, can be found up here in your modeling tab or on your solid tab. And we're going to work our way through them. So I'm going to use the typed commands, but there are places to click for all of these in the ribbon. You just have to find them. Most of them are right there. Okay. If I need a rectangular shaped thing or a box, I would type the box, start the box command. And here you're going to establish the shape of a rectangle. And you can either do that by pulling, or if you need to be specific, you can specify it. And once you've established what the rectangle looks like, you hit spacebar to accept or enter to accept, and then pull into the third dimension. And again, you can specify that height. So there I've created a 4 by 3 by 2 rectangular shaped box. I can also create a cylinder, which will be very similar. So I'm going to create the shape that I'm going to then pull into the third dimension. And this is just a circle. It's asking for the radius, so I'm going to make it 12 inches across and then pull into the direction that I want it to. Notice that you can either go in the positive or the negative direction. Doesn't really matter. And let's say that we're also going to make that 3 feet tall. Lovely. We can also make a cone where I'm going to create a base of a certain radius. And then I'm going to give it some amount of height. Similarly, we have a sphere where I'm creating a circle. Well, this one actually just goes in all directions at the same time. It's just 2 clicks. And again, you can specify the radius as needed. I can create a pyramid. It's not going to spell pyramid. There we go. And this has a few options here. I can specify the center point or the edge or the sides. Honestly, this is a tool that we use rarely, so it doesn't super matter all that much, but there we go. Just like the pyramids of Giza. Lovely, just a little bit more diminutive than those. Or you can create a wedge where you're establishing the size of the rectangle at the base of the wedge and then giving it some amount of height. Lovely. You can create a torus, which is the mathematical term for a donut. Donut. And then you can, once you've established the radius, you can then establish the thickness. Oh, look, a donut of which Homer would be proud. The last one that you can do here is called a polysolid. And you could use this if you're doing like walls or something like that for, you know, if you're drawing like the walls of a house, for example. This is one where you want to make sure that you have the settings correct before you start. So I'm going to say that the wall, the imaginary wall that we're drawing is, say it's 12 inches thick. I'm going to hit enter to accept that. And I'm going to say that the height here is 10 feet. Enter to accept that. And now when I click, I better scroll out, this is going to be giant. I have a wall that I can then just start to draw and specify. So maybe it's a 20-foot wall on that side. So it basically is like drawing with a polyline, except that the polyline has thickness and height, which is kind of awesome. That said, this is not a tool that we use very often in theater because normally we're not drawing 3-foot thick walls, we're drawing imaginary walls, made up walls for made up people. Cool. All right, so those are the primitives that you can use to create all kinds of three-dimensional shapes in AutoCAD. You can also create shapes by extruding them into the third dimension from a 2D shape. So let's say, and there's a couple of ways to do that. So let's say I just have a rectangle. Let's make it 3 by 4 to match the one above it. I don't know why I did that, but cool. So I can then select this. I can type EXTR for extrude, and then pull that into the third dimension. Lovely. Same thing with circles. I can extrude it into the third dimension. There's also another tool that we can use to do that, which is the PRESSPULL tool. So I'm going to make another rectangle. And I'm going to start my PRESSPULL command by typing PRESSPULL and hitting enter. And then I'm going to click inside that area, and that allows me to pull it into the third dimension as well. You'll notice something here, and that is that this, if I move it, leaves behind the shape that we originally press-pulled. So if you need that shape for some purpose later, press-pull is a great choice. The other really cool thing that press-pull can do is you can use it to subtract something or a shape from an existing solid, or to extend that shape from the existing solid. So let's say that I have a circle, and I'm going to make that, oh, I don't know, 6 inches. Let's say I want it 6 inches in diameter. So I'm going to type D to give me the diameter instead of the radius. And then I'm going to type 6. And now I'm going to press pull that circle. And you can see here, notice that the difference in how those two things are changing. And if I pull down some distance, I get a hole in this opening. And then if I do the opposite, I click down here and I pull up, I can have a rod. Oops, I think I O-snapped to something sad. I have a rod that sticks out like that. So it's a little bit of a more dynamic way to change the height or the thickness of something. You can absolutely press pull the sides of things as well. So let's say that I want the side of this to be a little bit further, and say I want it to be 6 inches out. I can type 6 and it makes that change for me. So press pull is a really, really powerful tool. There are places where it isn't really the best option, and we will talk about those at a later time, but it is very, very powerful. One thing to keep in mind though is that every time you use a press pull, you're going to leave the two-dimensional drawing of that object that you based the press pull off of. So if you don't want to have that in your finished drawing, just make sure that you either delete those or put them on a layer that you can get rid of later. All right, all of these things can be edited and changed and grouped together, but we're going to do that in a different video. Hope this was helpful. Let me know if you have questions. Bye.